Evening, brothers and sisters. We're back for this little video. It might end up being longer than I intended to be before we hit the law, but we've been kind of touching on that law over time, of course. But this one is going to be how we link actually what we're told in the scriptures, if we're willing to study and piece it together, like we've been doing on this channel. And before I forget, I'm going to turn my volume up. And hopefully it's not been muted. And we're going to link the burden of the Lord, and we're going to understand what it's referencing with the little book sealed that holds the truth that we find sealed up in the book of Revelation until the end. So we're going to start reading in Isaiah 26. Now, I was in doing the study this morning, and it's been quite a few hours since I've done it, and it's amazing how much you forget in such a short period of time. And but I was really quite into it this morning, so I don't know that I'll be able to get back into it the depth that I was in it. So, but we're going to start at Isaiah 26:17, and I'm going to change some of the phrasing in this passage to what I believe the Bible has certainly indicated that it truly is. If we've been in and done our study. So Isaiah 26 verse 16, you are a woman with child. Yeah. You have been in pain. You have, as it were, brought forth empty doctrines. It says wind, but we know what wind means. It's allegorical to empty doctrines when you get in doing your study. You women, or you woman, have not wrought any deliverance in the earth. What? You mean the children being delivered in the earth or from the earth is contingent on a woman? Apparently, according to this verse. You woman have not wrought any deliverance in the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. Verse 18. Thy dead will live together with my body, shall they rise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust. Now that takes us to Isaiah 29 verse 4, which we've looked at many times. But if we backtrack here, what it means here, thy dead will live together with my body, that means the mother Israel, daughters that they killed. They took away your mother who could give you life. She lives again. She does. She says, I swear by myself that I live forever. We're going to get into that. I swear by myself that I live forever. That's in Deuteronomy 32, verse, I wrote it down. Not that that's going to do any good. Where is it? Deuteronomy 32. It's not 18. It's verse... Where's my Deuteronomy? Back here. Okay, so Deuteronomy 32. She says, I swear by myself that I live forever. I didn't write the verse down, of course, but it's in there. She lifts her hand up to heaven. She says, I swear by myself that I live forever. So sorry, I knew exactly where this went this morning, but I didn't go in and recap it this evening like I should have for the sake of my own brain. But it is found in Deuteronomy 32 if you want to go and take a look at that. So it's actually a picture of the seventh angel, or the angel, not the seventh angel, or the angel that is found standing in Revelations 10. Because that angel there says the exact same thing, except it's the daughter this time saying it. Because she says, I swear by the one that created all things. I swear by the one that lives forever. Right? In Revelation 10, and again we're going to hit at them in a minute, but I got to get through this passage. But it does link to, it's a picture of the one standing up for her children, revealing the mystery. When the seventh trumpet does sound, she reveals that mystery that you find by supposedly the 3.5-year mark of the tribulation. So that's in Revelation 10. But we'll finish the verse. Thy dead will live together with my dead body. Shall they rise, awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust. Now, those that dwell in the dust is found in Isaiah 29, verse 4. Like I said, we've looked at it. Which is akin to the lioness's roaring in Micah 5:8, because that's found again in Revelations chapter 10, or Revelation chapter 10, where she is standing like a lioness. They say a lion. It's identified as lionesses in the Bible, roaring, because they are going to be heard at the end of days. Their covenant is going to be heard. They're going to roar, and you're going to listen when they roar. So Micah 5, for thy dew, awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust. And that's in Micah 5:8, the lioness is roaring. For thy dew, that's the doctrine of the dawn, a dew. When do you get hit with a dew? Well, you get hit with it in the early morning. Is as the dew of herbs. What's herbs do? They heal. So it's a dew, a doctrine of the dawn that heals. It's a healing truth. Is for, and the earth shall cast out the dead. Or it says, give birth to the dead. So if we get a deeper understanding of what it's actually saying there, what did it just tell us? It says you are dead without your mother. You're dead without her. You are not delivered without your mother. That's what that is testifying to. Now, we're going to move on to Isaiah 46 here, okay? And I wish I'd have had the time to have done it this morning, because I could have linked it so much better, because all of these are actually going to take us back to Jeremiah 23 and the burden of the Lord, all right? So we're just showing you children which are being delivered by the daughter, or by this woman, all right? We have not wrought a deliverance in the earth. And how it's actually going to link us all back to Jeremiah 23. All right, now, first we're going to go to Isaiah 46. Baal, that's actually Baal, all right? We know who Baal is on this channel. We've studied it. Baal boweth down, all right? Nebu stoopeth. All right, let's backtrack to Psalm 57:6. What does it say? It says, Baal boweth down, Nebu stoopeth. But if we go to Psalm 57:6, it says this. They spread a net for my feet. For whose feet? For the daughters of Israel's feet. Mother God's firstborn is what she's identified. Ephraim, who also went by the name of Israel. Yeah. It says, they spread a net for my feet. I was bowed down in distress, and they dug a pit. That means they marred my path before me. But they dug a pit in my path, but they have fallen into it themselves. All right. So this is going to link us again to the burden when we keep reading. But here, the burden, the net that they spread for her feet, they dug a pit and they fell into it. All right. And that takes us to Jeremiah 30, verse 6, this idea that a man can deliver children. All right, so that's why we were looking at Isaiah 26. So allow my brain to catch up with my thoughts from this morning as I go here. I found myself with some time this evening unexpectedly, so I figured I'd maybe try to put it together. So that's why we went to Isaiah 26, and we showed you, she says, we have not wrought a deliverance in the earth. All right, we have not managed to resurrect the children because we have failed to birth our children, because we've been teaching them empty doctrines. That's what we've come to realize the meaning of Isaiah 26, 17, 18 means. And then when we begin to link the burden, we come to really understand what was really at the heart of everything. And it was men saying that, you know, the burden of the Lord was too much for a woman. Yeah. But in Jeremiah 30, verse 6, we link this back to the snare. And it says, ask now and see if a man can give birth, if a male can give birth. Why do I see every man with his hands on his stomach like a woman in labor? Why has every face turned deathly pale? Well, deathly pale, when you go in and you take a look at the commentary on this particular passage, it will tell you that they're bearing witness to the government of the world falling, the entire government system falling, and they're totally confused by it, is the idea. They're frightened by it. They're scared by it. And it says, Nebu stoopeth. We just read that. Forgive me. Okay, thought I was going to sneeze. Nebu is 5015. And it means prophet, Babylonian deity who presided over learning and letters. Now we're going to get into something that I didn't think the Bible actually testified to, and turns out it absolutely does so testify to it. Which is why we end up with a little book. And that's the idea of false prophets adding and adding to the word when they should not have added anything to it, and they should have remained silent. So that's where our arrow's heading at this point. We're heading that way. So the Babylonian deity who presided over learning and letters, and it says other things, but I'm going to stop there on the definition or what it says for Nebu. Their idols were upon the beasts and upon the cattle. Your carriages were heavy laden. They are a burden, there we go with the burden, to the weary beasts. All right, now we're again back in Isaiah 46. We're reading that verse. I didn't write the verse down. Oh my gosh. I was pretty slack there. I think it must be 1. Yeah. Right? So Nebu stoopeth, idols were upon the beasts, and upon the cattle your carriages were heavy laden. They were a burden to the weary beasts. Verse 2. They stooped, they bowed down together. They bowed down together. They could not deliver the burden. What was the burden? When we get really looking at this issue of a burden being delivered, it's the children that need it to be delivered. And we know who delivers children. There's no denying it. Unless God's a big fat liar by creating the female form which delivers children, forms the clay in her womb. Her body does that. That's right. She's gave that responsibility by the Creator. Then it would testify that God is a total liar. But I'm going to tell you, I don't believe God's the liar. I believe man is the liar, and I believe the word testifies to it, which shocked me today, or yesterday, or the day before. I began to really discover it. By following out the burden, right? In Jeremiah 23 that we've looked at in many, many of our videos on this channel. So they could not, these idols, Baal. Now, Baal is simply, when you get studying it, another word for your husband who wanted to rule over woman. All right? And that does so link us to many passages in the Bible that absolutely testifies to this as being a simple truth. And that is found in Genesis 49 verses 23-24. When you get looking at your words there, it's also testified to in the book of Esther. All through it, we come to realize what was really going on. And we looked at that in another one of our videos, so I'm not going to discuss it here until maybe a little bit further in here, if we get the chance. So they could not deliver the burden, the children. That's the burden that we're looking at being delivered here. But themselves are going into captivity. Yeah. What's the captivity? Well, let's backtrack. Psalm 57 verse 6. They spread a net for my feet. For whose feet? For daughter Israel's feet. Mother God's firstborn. That's how she's identified. Ephraim also went by the name of Israel. That's right, the north kingdom. And she's identified, and we've identified her, as mother's firstborn. But they spread a net for her feet to fall into, a trap, a snare of lies, right? I was bowed down in distress, and she was greatly distressed over what was going on to Mother God's law upon this earth and to her covenant. They dug a pit in my path that takes you to Job chapter 30 or 31. She says, they mar my path before me. And they made a breach, and they swarmed upon me wave after wave. That's what she says. It's like a war. It was like a siege laid against her. So, in my path, but they have fallen into it themselves. So, Baal, Nebu, these are your prophets. Babylonian deity who presided over learning and letters. Well, if you're presiding over letters and learning, you have a pretty lofty position. And these learning and letters came into play, right, into what we believe in today. And so their idols were upon the beasts, upon the cattle. Your carriages were heavy laden. They are burdened to the weary beast. They stooped, they bowed down together. They bowed down together. They could not deliver the children, the burden. But they themselves have gone into captivity. That's right, under their own lies. They began to believe and to preach their own religious lies that they thought they were going to trap her in. That's right, but that they were going to escape. We find out when we get reading that the snare they lay for her, they fall into it, and they do not escape it. So this lying theology, it burns in their hearts, it burns in their minds, and they can't depart from it. Because to believe that women are responsible for the deliverance in the earth, the salvation in the earth, it burns them. It really does. It burns in their hearts. They've really fell into the snare that they laid for themselves to fall into. And by that it means their forefathers. It means men like them. That's right. Who laid this snare for the women to fall into, but in the end they end up falling into it, is what it's saying here. So listen to me, you descendants of Israel. Now they got Jacob there. They always want to stick Jacob there. I'm putting Israel here, and I'm going to put a semicolon there, as if the idea continues to carry through, as if it's further defined here. Listen to me, you descendants of Israel, all the remnant daughters of Israel. That's who she's addressing here. You whom I carried since your birth in my womb. That's Mother God speaking. Even to your old age, even to my old age, your old age, and my gray hairs, I am she, not a he. Reason the text out. Nobody wants to reason and use common sense. And God says, reason the truth out. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am she. I am she who will sustain you. That's with my milk. And I'm also going to wash the blood off of my daughters. I promised them I would do that. I'm going to wash them with my truth. And I will what? I will rescue you. That's her promise to her daughters. Now, if you want to watch the last videos, you'll begin to really put it together if you didn't watch my last video. So, we're also told this, that the world cannot receive the spirit of truth. And I'm going to suggest to you, it's mostly the males. It's the men of Baal, the sons of Belial, the sons of darkness. They can't receive this simple truth. And it is a very simple truth. Men do not deliver children. They do not save them. They do not rescue them. As this is alluding to that exact thing, by deliverance, by birthing them. And it's only women who do that. And you can't reason that out. They fell into the snare. We're going to get into this. So we're going to go into Jeremiah next. And this is going to pull this whole theme together, hopefully, which I've done very poorly of up to this point. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But we'll get moving here. Now, I made some quick notes. Alright, so hopefully we can move through them pretty quickly. So, Jeremiah 23. If you want to turn to Jeremiah 23, this is a pivotal chapter. I almost think this chapter should be our center chapter in the Bible. That's how important it has become in this study and to understanding really what was going on and how to break down the rest of the scriptures. It's become very important in that understanding for me. So, verse 9, I said to myself, let's begin, but I think I wrote that down wrong. I think I'm going to begin at 15. But I'm going to look at verse 9 right quick here to see what I do got. No, let's begin at verse 9. Okay, so this is also, keep this verse in mind as well as we begin our learning and our understanding. In Isaiah 29, she says, you told the potter she had no power over the clay. Well, the potter would be your creator that forms the clay in her womb. And you told her, you told the daughters, and by extension you told the true creator above, who the daughter's image she's reflecting, that she had no power. That's what you told her. So this is all going to bring into play how this all came about, all right? Mine heart within me is broken because of the prophets, because of the false prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken, now they got a man. I'm going to say a woman here. I've become like a drunken woman. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because of the verse that we do, the verses, couple of verses that we do find in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 15 and 16. All right? So there is some relevance in these passages, even though about what I'm about to say about these particular passages, at least some of them. So all my bones shake. I am like a drunken woman, and like a woman whom wine has overcome, because of the Lord and because of the word of her holiness. Now, what we realize when we backtrack to Psalm 60 about this wine that becomes so important to our understanding, she says this in Psalm 60 verse 3, and I believe she is pointing at her daughters at this point. She says, thou, she's speaking on earth, thou hast shown thy daughters hard things. You've taught us some pretty nasty things, Mother. Yes, you have. When you pulled your power off us, we ended up going through some pretty hard lessons here on earth, because thou hast made us to drink the wine of astonishment. Now, we're going to learn what that wine of astonishment is akin to. And I'm just going to outline it pretty briefly right here, right now. The wine of astonishment that these daughters had to drink, they began to realize just how wicked the heart of their other half could be when he became in full control of the law, and just how wicked his heart was to suppress her, to write laws against her, to perpetuate violence against her, and to take away her purpose in the earth from her. This is part and parcel of the wine of astonishment that these daughters and all us daughters on earth have been forced to drink. The law is designed to yoke us. He didn't just have a light yoke upon him like what Mother God's laws are said to be, which are 10 commandments, and then you were to uphold her Sabbath day, which she tells us what the Sabbath is all about in Isaiah 58. And Christ says, my burden is light. That's what he says. And he's talking about her law. But the wine of astonishment is when they got writing the laws, they didn't stop. They just kept writing them and writing them and writing them and yoking her and yoking her and yoking her, to the point where it says he places burdens on you that he could never carry himself. He could never bear these yokes, ever. Because a woman in travail can take a lot more pain than a man can. And she's forced to show that in the earth. Yeah, I know. But once you are able to reason the whole idea out, then you begin to realize why women are able to withstand the pain that they are able to withstand when it comes to travailing and bringing forth her children. All right? But the wine of astonishment goes back to the religious lies and laws that he willingly wrote against her, and told lies and gnashed upon her to take the spirit of her covenant out of her land. Now, she was naive and she didn't think he would do that. She really didn't, I don't think. We none realize just how wicked his hand has been in this plague. Yeah. We still think that this is the truth and that he wouldn't do this to us willingly. And yet it's proven to us that that's exactly what he did. He wrote lies. And he wrote a lot. So we're going to get on to this again. For the land is full of adulterers. For because of the swearing, the land, that's the pleasant land of Israel, identified as feminine, the land mourneth. Now another word for mourneth is to be made black. Mourn. And she became black. She began to teach a lying theology, his lying theology, to her vineyard, which links us back to the Shulamite who says, look not upon me because I'm black. False light. Yeah. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own children have I not delivered. That's right. She's been teaching a religious lie, his religious lie, to her children. And she hasn't delivered them. So she says, for the land mourneth, the pleasant places, Israel was called the pleasant land, of the wilderness are dried up. That's another name for Zion, a desert land, a dried land. They didn't want her water. And they were told to receive the spirit of this covenant from their wife, which is identified in Proverbs 5 as a well of water, her waters, that also flow from Lebanon. That's right, they're living water. But he didn't want them. And their course is evil, and their force is not right. For both prophet and priest are profane. Yea, in my house have I found their wickedness. That means even in my house, in the forest of Lebanon, I have found their wickedness on my daughters' tongues. Yeah, they dare to bring these ridiculous notions, these imaginations of those wicked prophets and priests' heart into my house and start to spill it. And she says to her daughters, you will not be who I govern through. I am not going to govern through a harlot spirit that builds a man up with my goods, with my power. I will come off of you, and you will drink the wine of astonishment when you realize what he will do to you. When he is gave full power. When you use your power to build him up, you will find out what he will do to you. And if we haven't done that, they've erased our histories over and over. Women don't have no history. All she is a baby maker, that's it. And yet, he delivers the children. Oh, she has no purpose, huh? Mind you, she's more than just a baby maker, too. We don't want to preach that one because, he lives for that one, too. Yeah, he can twist anything. He's good at it. And, but that's the wine of astonishment. So she says, I have found their wickedness, says the Lord, even in my house. What house? The house in the forest of Lebanon, where the living God met with the living daughters who flowed like a living word, living water, and kept everybody alive with it. So verse 12, that's the deliverance of the children. Wherefore their way shall be unto them as slippery ways. In the darkness they shall be driven on and fall therein. For I will bring evil upon them, even the year of their visitation. What's the year of visitation? That's the day of the Lord, says the Lord. When the day of the Lord is about what? The controversy of Zion. What's the controversy of Zion? Well, you split my pleasant land, my daughters, into two covenants, an allegory, which you find in Galatians 4. And we've discussed this profusely, so I'm not going into it. Verse 13, and I have seen folly in the prophets of Samaria. They prophesy in Baal. There we go, Baal again. They began to prophesy in man. That's right. The men began to prophesy through themselves. All right, now, let's keep going. And have caused my people Israel to err. Yeah. Those that erred in spirit will murmur, they will grumble, they will groan, but they will learn the true doctrine, she says. I have seen also the prophets of Jerusalem, and a horrible thing is committed. They commit adultery and they walk in lies. They strengthen also the hands of the evildoers, that's men, that none does return from his wicked ways. They are all of them unto me as Sodom, and the inhabitants thereof as Gomorrah. Yeah. So, verse 15. Now, this is where I began to make my notes. All right. So, verse 15, what do we find in this verse? Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts concerning the prophets, behold, I will feed them with wormwood. What's wormwood? Well, that's what causes the belly to become bitter, which will kill. Now, so what are we told? Iniquity is shaped by the law. And what we're told in one passage right outright is that wormwood is the law system that came to poison us. So we know sin is shaped by the law. Iniquity is shaped by the law. It states that right out. So the wormwood that's in view is our current law system that's poisoning us with sin. That's right. Whether it be religious, because this is what it says here. or whether it be our current government systems. And it says, behold, I will feed them with wormwood and make them drink the water of gall. For from the prophets of Jerusalem is profaneness gone forth into all the land, all the earth. It fed out from Zion. That's right. It fed out to the four corners of the world and poisoned us. As if that was the doctrine of truth to develop our systems upon. That became the false foundation, this religious lie that we're all taught. So, so what I wanted to focus on is all the land became polluted. It did. That's what it's telling us here. The entire earth. Verse 16, thus saith the Lord of hosts, hearken not unto the words of the prophets that prophesy unto you. They make you vain. They speak a vision of their own heart and not out of the mouth of the Lord. So the false prophets were being clearly shown here that these men who prophesy in Baal husband are false prophets. All right? It's not me saying it. It's just saying it right here. So, and that also will take us to, again, Genesis 49, verses 23-24, where they shot at the daughters, the scions, right, from Israel, is truly the position that we're looking at, the north kingdom, shot at these female descendants, and who was shooting at them? The men of Baal. And they're called archers in those verses, but it's Baal, husband who wants to be Lord and Master. Well, what were they shooting at him with? Well, those would be the religious lies, words, sword, tongue, arrows are your words. And they were shooting at them to take the spirit of the covenant out of the land. Verse 17, what do I have on 17? Their imaginations. They say still unto them that despise me, the Lord has said, ye shall have peace. And they say unto everyone that walketh after the imagination, a man can give life. Yeah, there's the imagination. And they began to prophesy with that he pronoun because they're prophesying through themselves. Baal, men. Yeah. That's the wine of astonishment that the daughters of Zion, the daughters of Israel, then the daughters of Bashan had to drink. Yeah. Because they rejected the spirit of their covenant. So they were astonished at the wickedness of these men who were supposed to be the other half of their covenant. Telling lies. That's right. Spreading lies that Father, Son, children. He's the life giver. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hip and every face turned pale? And yet, she's the only one who can give life to the dead. So without your mother, you're all dead. And that's what they took from you. That's why we die. We don't have a heavenly mother to give life to us. And that was the promise she made to her daughters. I'll cause you to drink the wine of astonishment at what he will cause in the earth and do to you. Yeah, the one that he professes to love. He don't love you. Look what he did to you. He puts laws on your neck he would never wear himself. Never. Ye shall have peace. These are the lies. They say unto everyone that walketh after the imagination of his own heart, no evil will come upon you. Yeah, preach a he. Go for it. No evil's going to come upon you. This is the promise that they've made to each other and to themselves. Go ahead, prophesy in Baal. Prophesy in Father. Go ahead. Prophesy in Son. And heck, add a third male there too. Go ahead. There's no evil going to come upon you because the king's coming to deliver you. You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure you've actually gone in and studied? So, what does she say here? This is quite an amazing verse here. And this is actually going to take us to the little book, this verse here. If we get really studying and understanding the things that the Holy Spirit wants us to understand. Verse 18, for who had stood in the counsel of the Lord? Who has actually listened to the Lord? Now, the Lord says to them in Isaiah 29, she says, you approach to me with your lips, but you don't even know who I am. That's what she says. So, you created a religion after the imagination of your own heart. We've got a triple male, 3 thrones. He's going to deliver you. So what that does with a law system is to actually build him up as the ruler and king on this earth, and puts women in a position of great submission, especially when they're your lawmakers and they yoke and yoke and yoke and yoke around your neck with yokes that they will never wear themselves. Yeah. So this is their imagination. They want it to play God. So this is leading us to an understanding of who God is in the earth, who the true Almighty God in heaven calls God on this earth. So, for who had stood in the counsel of the Lord and perceived and heard her words? Who's listened to her? All right, now, look at this. Look at this. We've got this great, big, thick Bible book. They've all heard Father, Son, and another third male. Father, Son, and a third male. But who has heard her words? Who has stood in the counsel of the Lord and have perceived and heard her words, and who has marked her words and heard it? Who's done that? Well, that understanding, when you begin to listen to Mother and to the Divine Feminine, is going to take you to Revelation 10, where the little book is sealed up. Out of this big religious book, your Biblio. Look how thick that is. Who can really understand all of that? Who? Christ says, my yoke is light. And yet, look at this. A Bible that would testify to a law system that was supposedly handed down by God, not man. And look how thick it is. Look how thick it is. So that's why God says this in verse 18 of Jeremiah 23. For who has stood in the counsel of the Lord? Who? And hath perceived and heard her words, Mother's words. And we're going to get closer to understanding this. Who had marked her words and heard it? That's the little book sealed up. Behold. Okay, we're also going to bring in Proverbs right quick here. All right, where's my Proverbs? Okay, so it must be ahead. So we're just briefly going to take a look at this verse here in Proverbs 24, verse 6. What does it say? All right, it says, for by wise counsel. What did it say? For who hath stood in the counsel of the Lord? For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war. So, that idea of war we discussed again on one of the prior videos, 2 or 3 videos ago, where she says, my bow, my covenant, abode in strength, right? And my hand was made to break the iron of a bow made of, it says steel, but it's not steel. And she says, I'm able to do that because, she's actually saying, because I do walk in the counsel of the Lord. That's what she's saying. And we looked at that, all right? Maybe not quite in that context, but we did read these passages in 2 or 3 videos back. So, for by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war. Who? The daughters. Yeah, the daughters. Standing up for what they were created for. And it was for Mother God's purpose, the Almighty above. And it was to bring the covenant of Mother into the world. And to deliver the children through that covenant of truth. Which is found sealed up in that little book in Revelations 10 that comes out of that big old book full of lies written by the hand of Baal, who began to prophesy through the imaginations of his own heart. And we can back that up. We keep studying. Okay, so for by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in a multitude of counselors there is safety. For wisdom is too high for a fool. He cannot open his mouth in the gate. You want to know why? Because they're cowards. in the minute that they go in the day that they go in to actually study this truth that is revealed to us daughters, it says it comes back on their head. It's too powerful for them. They don't want to know it. They want to be able to say, he. They want to believe it. They want to dismiss you as the other half of the covenant and as the Holy Spirit upon the earth. They want to be able to do that. They want to be able to debase you under their law, under their man-made religious lies and laws. And they want to believe above anything else that a male, a king called God is coming into this world to deliver the children. Yeah, that's what they truly want to believe. Well, that's just the imaginations of their heart, because the fathers, it was like a sour grape on their tongue to have to receive the law of heaven at his wife's own mouth. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. No, can't do it. There's just bitterness in their heart towards their other half, towards their spouse, towards their sisters, towards their mothers, towards their daughters. And they're in total denial about it. And yet all you got to do is open your eyes and look around at the religious lies and laws that is spewed off their tongue. So, verse 19, behold, a whirlwind of the Lord is gone forth in fury, even a grievous whirlwind. It shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked. Yeah. She's the wrath. Her wrath rises in the earth, and she begins to roar like a lioness, like an Ariel. Gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. Roar like the lioness you are, amongst the Gentiles with the dew of the dawn, dew of the herbs, a true healing found within it. Not just for the men who says, me, and you bow, because it's all about me. Yeah, there's no healing in that. It leads to the total destruction of this world, and if man was let go, he'd destroy him own self. But she says, because I am a loving mother, I allowed my daughters to drink the wine of astonishment to understand why she does not bow to you. Get it? No. That requires being a strong one. Yeah. Having a backbone. Being able to reason. And above all things, being able to speak to your mother, the Holy One in heaven. Yeah. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You're too busy. Well, we're going to get into it. Let's keep going and see what else it says. Okay. The anger of the Lord, verse 20, shall not return until she have executed, until she has performed the thoughts of her heart. And in the latter days, ye shall consider it perfectly. Yeah, not until we've gone through all the crap that we've had to go through upon this earth are we really going to start to consider what we've been forced to go through. Verse 21, I have not sent these prophets. Pay attention to what she's telling us here right now. I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesy. Look at that. Look at the thickness of that. Wow. You're never going to be able to understand it without her. She says, my truth flows in there like a silver thread. That silver thread is like water flowing. And she says, it's in there. But it's sealed up as a little book. At the end of days, after my daughters have been forced to drink his wine, his lie that he puts to her lip, so he can expose her nakedness to make her play his harlot and make him God in the earth and be yoked and think that he has God-given right to do it. So she says, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. All right. Making sure here. I'm not going to miss any of my notes. So, verse 21, prophets not sent. Okay. This is why the Bible is so thick. The false prophets. Yeah, they had to put their part and parcel in there. We're going to find out who that was, too, if we keep reading. But if they had stood in my counsel, if they had actually listened to me and heard me, the true living one, who gives life to my children, and they're not a burden to me. Yeah. We have been with child. We have, as it were, brought forth empty doctrine. Wind. Allegory. Greek 4:17. You got to go there. You can't go to your Hebrew, because it'll just give you wind. So, but if they had stood in my counsel and had caused my people to hear my words, then they should have turned them from their evil ways and from the evil of their doings. But they didn't. That's why we're in the mess we're in. Yeah. That's why we're in the mess we're in. So it actually links us to, I do have it wrote down. I'm not going to go there just yet. All right. But I did write it down, so just give me a second here to make sure I did write it down. No, I got it pulled up, though. Okay, let me see if I wrote it down here. Yeah, I do have it here. Okay, so she says they would have turned you away from your evil ways, but had they actually hearkened to my counsel, which they wouldn't, these false prophets. In Lamentations 2:14, it says, the visions of your prophets were false and worthless. They did not expose your sin to ward off your captivity. So the daughters went into captivity because they were listening to these lying men who was prophesying through their fathers, Baal, Habi, who wanted to rule over his own spirit, his wife. Right. Instead of receiving the truth of heaven from her mouth. So it says, the visions of your prophets were false and worthless. They did not expose your sin to ward off your captivity. The prophecies they gave you were false and misleading. All right, we're going to get there. Sorry I'm taking so long. So, verse 23, am I a God at hand, saith the Lord, and not a God afar off? Okay, so this is a bit of a riddle. But once you understand who God was standing here, the riddle is, though God is standing right beside you, you don't know her. That's why she's far off. You don't even know who she is. She says, you approach me with the vain traditions of men to worship me. He, and you don't even know who I am. Am I a God near? Am I a God far? Am I not a God far off? Of course she's a God far off, because you don't even know her, yet she's standing right beside you. That's what she's saying there. Because we know Israel means God wrestles. Israel was God standing on this earth. That's right, the daughters were known as God upon this earth, the presence of God. That's why you get the sons of God in Genesis 6. We looked at that. We have a video posted on the sons of Zion, the sons of God. Right, that's why they were called the sons of God, because they were her sons. And so they were known as God upon this earth. So she says, am I a God? It's a riddle. And once you understand it, you understand it. Though God stands beside you, you don't even know her. That's what she's saying. Know thee not, thine own right hand can deliver you. And that right hand is identified as God. So though God stands beside you, you didn't know her. She's your life giver. She's the one that can give life to the dead. You're not gonna live without a mother to birth you. Sorry. It just, number one, it don't reason. And it goes right back to these wicked prophets who are prophesying through the imaginations of their own heart. Father, Father, Father gives life. And he knew that to write that religious lie was going to give him power under his own law as the God of this world to do whatever he wanted to her. And they did. Look at our history. Look at our history. That's all you got to do. Open your eyes. Yeah. We have drunk the wine of astonishment. That's what we daughters have done. Okay, so, can any hide himself in secret places that I shall not see him, saith the Lord? Do not I fill heaven and earth? She does. How? With her children. Yeah. But she also says, hey, you'll be no burden to me. I won't deliver you because you ain't no children of mine. Yeah. Go get Daddy to deliver you. He delivers children. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips? Ask now and see if a man can give birth. No. And yet they prophesy, Father laid the heavens out. Oh, did he? Did he? The wicked imaginations of their heart. Verse 25, I have heard what the prophets said, that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. And I'll read the next one. How long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? Yea, they are prophets of the deceit of their own hearts. So their hearts are full of lies, so they dream lies. Yeah. And that's kind of to be understood. If you're taught a religious lie, you begin to dream of whenever you dream a lie. You're not dreaming of anything that's of a truth because your heart is full of wickedness. It's full of the imaginations of his heart. And so you begin to dream foolish dreams. Yeah, you do. Their hearts are full of lies, so they dream lies. A corrupted heart will dream corrupt dreams, and it will. So you've been taught this religious lie of a he. So 9 times out of 10, you'll dream of a he. Yeah. I have never dreamt of a he, save once, and he was sitting to mothers. He was actually sitting to her left in the dream, while the right hand seat was empty and unoccupied at that time. Anyway, I talked about that briefly. But it is telling us if our heart is full of a lie, a religious lie, then you're going to dream false dreams. That's what it's telling us. So 27, yea, they are prophets of the deceit of their own heart, which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, and they did, which they tell every man to his neighbor. Technically, neighbor here is actually referencing possibly Israel, the north kingdom, neighbor, the neighboring kingdom. So we know that they did put false doctrines to their neighbor's lips. But it could also be those wives that they took in covenant from the surrounding Adamic nations that they were not supposed to take in covenant. So there could be a twofold meaning to that understanding, but we already discussed it also when we took a look at when they murdered the mothers of wisdom, identified as the stones on the high priest's breastplate, and they were murdering them on the four corners, or on the street corners is what you get in allegory, and offering up a blood libation as opposed to a water libation, which they were supposed to be offering up. And then by the 3rd verse of Lamentations, we see those daughters already turning away from raising up their children in the manner that they were supposed to. So, but we discussed it is the point. So through their dreams that they tell one another, they plan to cause my people to forget my name as their fathers. I believe it was the mothers who forgot this, though the fathers fell into the snare. Right? Baal boweth down, Nebu stoopeth, right? The beasts, their idols were upon the beasts and upon the cattle. Your carriages were heavy laden. They are a burden to the weary beasts, right? And they stoop, they bow down together, they bow down together. They could not deliver the burden, but they themselves are gone into captivity. So the same ones who taught this religious lie, thinking they were crafty in doing it and that they would never forgot the truth and fell into their own snare. That they're God, male, and you women better bow to them and listen to what they got to say, because Fathers are no respecter of person, and yet chose the sons and exalt them in the earth with her at his feet. Yeah, that's right. They tell her, bow down, that we may go over you. Yeah. So, every man to his neighbor as their fathers or mothers have forgotten my name for Baal. Baal means your husband who wants to rule over you. Yeah, with his own laws. So what do I got on 27? You forgot my truth about Baal. Yeah, that he's hubby who wants to rule over you. And he don't care how many lies he's got to tell to do it. 28. The prophet that has a dream, let him tell the dream. If you have a real bona fide dream from me, tell it. But she that has my word, let her speak my word faithfully, for what is chaff to the wheat? For what is a foolish dream? Yeah. To wheat, something that can sustain you. Yeah, something that can give life, cause you to live. God's words feeds and nourishes. A dream don't feed and nourish you. It doesn't. God's word is what we should be feeding upon. And we're told it's a little sealed up book. It's not this big biblios full of false prophets that ran with burdens and lies. Yeah, and we're going to get to it. We're still going to hit it. We ain't there yet, but we're getting there. Is not my word like as a fire? So we see this, God's law is what's going to purify the earth. So that's the fire that you see in, is it 2 Peter? Where it says the elements will burn with fervent heat. Well, the elements is actually allegorical to the false principles of this world that we became founded upon, which is a harlot spirit that will exalt man as God, which then takes you to Daniel 2 and that false image of man, golden idol of a man, a God as your king and ruler. Yeah, that's a lie. So, is not my word like fire, saith the Lord, and like a hammer that breaketh the rocks in pieces? So they're breaking the rock, the false foundation out, the harlot spirit that bows to a man. And man teaching himself as if he's God. He married himself, basically. Baal inside of Baal is your understanding in Isaiah 54, verse 1. So, verse 29. Okay. So God's word, truth, purifies the world, and it brings down the false foundation is what it does. 31, behold, I am against the prophets, saith the Lord, that use their tongues and say, He saith. There, it comes right out. But because we're so screwed up in our thinking, we just bypass the obvious, right? So this is where they actually began to put in play the actual use written in this biblios, the pronoun he. And they didn't stop at one in the theology. They go on to say he. With the Jews, where the whole world became polluted, right? It began as one he, and that was it, right? So you see the shifting from a mother who delivers the burden, the children, and they were no burden to her, to a father who gives life to all things. That's the foolish imaginings of their hearts, these false prophets. And she says, fine, if you're going to take your goods that I give to you and the power that I give to you and use it to build him up, I'll take my power off of you and you won't have it. And I will cause you to drink the wine of astonished, and you're going to be astonished at what he's going to do to you. And when you look the word astonished up, it means to stagger. You know, I can't remember. I wrote it under one of my videos. The last video, I believe, or the video before the last. What the word astonished meant. Go look it up if you're able to in your Strong's Hebrew in Psalm 60 verse 3. Check that word astonished. Okay? And it's a feminine noun. It's a feminine noun for a reason, because they were staggering and astonished at what he was willing to do to her under his man-made religious law and laws. All right, so 31, they began to use the pronoun he. Verse 32, Behold, I am against them that prophesy false dreams, you liars, saith the Lord, and do tell them, and cause my people to err by their lies, by their likeness. Yet I sent them not, nor commanded them. Therefore they shall not profit this people at all, saith the Lord. So when we look at lightness, lies, of course, is falsehood. Lightness is boasting, right? They became real boasters of the he. They really built him up. But again, it takes us back to the lying dreams, because you've been taught a lie. You're saying you've had this dream. He spoke to you, because you've been taught these religious lies. So you dream lies because you've been taught a lie. On to 33. All right, so this is where we're really going to start to understand a few things about this biblios. So verse 33, and when this people or the prophet or priest shall ask thee, saying, what is the burden of the Lord? Thou shalt then say unto them, what burden? Right? I will even forsake you, saith the Lord. There is no burden. So the prophets began to prophesy the burden of the Lord. And so the Lord becomes angered by Baal, hubby, saying that the burden and the deliverance of the children, or the children, were a burden to the mothers to have to deliver through her law. So they began to actually prophesy that it was easier for a father to deliver children. So she says to them, don't worry. What burden? What burden? I will even forsake you. He'll be no burden to me. But let's keep reading on to see just what she does actually have to say. And as for the prophet and the priest and the people that say, the burden of the Lord, I will even punish that man and his house. What did she just say there? This ought to be highlighted in our Bible. It ought to be. And as for the prophet and the priest and the people that shall say, the burden of the Lord, I will even punish that man and his house. So, let me see here. I will even punish that man. Verse Zechariah chapter 9 verse 1. What does Zechariah say? The burden of the word of the Lord. I thought the Lord just told him, don't you dare prophesy the burden of the Lord. Don't you dare. And yet we've got it, Zechariah 9:1, the burden of the word of the Lord. Not just there. Zechariah 12:1, the burden of the word of the Lord for who? Israel. So we're being shown in Jeremiah 23 that these prophets ran and prophesied to Israel about a false burden, which then led us to Lamentations 2:14. The visions of your prophets were false and worthless. They did not expose your sin to ward off your captivity. The prophecies they gave you were false and misleading. We getting it? Why is this biblios so bloody thick? Why? You think men can't lie? Claiming that the Holy Spirit's upon them, or God Father is upon them, and they're going to prophesy. She says, I sent you not, yet you ran. I gave you no vision, yet you ran. I told you not to prophesy about the burden of the Lord, and yet you find it in here. After she told them not to do it. Not only there. Malachi 1:1. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. Oh, book's getting thicker. Yeah, thicker and thicker. Nahum 1:1. This is the burden against Nineveh. The book of the vision of Nahum the Ecoshite. She says, I gave you no vision, yet you ran. Habakkuk 1:1. This is the burden that Habakkuk the prophet received in a vision. Oh, the burden. I sent you no vision. I told you not to prophesy about the burden of the Lord, and yet you ran. Oh, are we starting to understand the little book sealed up in the big book? I think we are. Oh, I am. Can't speak for anybody else. It's pretty much getting evidenced. So, what does it say? Verse 35. We're on to 35. Okay. So, this shall ye say, everyone to his neighbor. This is interesting. This is what each man is to say to his friend. Well, friend, if I understand it, means a companion. It means a wife. Actually, in the old world, they would call a companion a friend. It meant a wife. So this is what each man is to say to his wife and to his brother, his sister, not brother. What has the Lord answered, or what has the Lord spoken? That links us to Proverbs chapter 5. You are to receive the waters that would wash you clean from your own wife. That's right. Not from man prophesying out of the imaginations of his own heart that he's the life giver and creator of all things, and that he can deliver the children. He was to listen to her, and he wasn't. He wasn't. He was writing laws of violence against her and perpetuating all kinds of nasties against her. Yeah. And mother says, I found your wickedness in my house, to which she pulls her power off her daughters and says, if you're going to build hubby up as a god in the earth, I'm pulling my power off of you, and you're going to drink the wine of astonishment. You're going to learn the hard way what he is and what he'll do to you. You don't bear witness to that? Especially in our law system, our histories. Wow. So, all right, so they were to receive it and what does it say? It says, my sister, my spouse, is a well shut up, a fountain springing that flows from Lebanon as a living water. Yeah. Not adding up yet? Oh no, we know. You won't escape. You have too much wickedness in your heart. You want to build yourself up. That he pronoun makes you so happy. It tickles you. And you delight in debasing your sisters. Yeah. So this is what each man is to say to his wife and to his sister. What has the Lord answered, or what has the Lord spoken? So verse 36, the living God, the spouse flows like a living word from Lebanon. Now, we found that, of course, in Song of Songs 4:12 to 4:15. All right, so we've talked about that. Now I'm to read these last few verses out. Thus shalt thou say to the prophet, what has the Lord answered thee, and what has the Lord spoken to you? But since ye say, the burden of the Lord, yeah, it's there. Go look them up. But since ye say the burden of the Lord, therefore thus saith the Lord, because ye say this word, the burden of the Lord, and I have sent unto you, saying, ye shall not say the burden of the Lord. Therefore, behold, I will utterly forget you, and I will forsake you. And the city that I gave you and your fathers, and I will cast you out of my presence. Don't worry, you'll be no burden to me, because I'm not going to bother to deliver you. Number one, you don't want me delivering you. Yeah. You have a wickedness so deep in you, you can't receive the truth. You can't. You're too far removed from it. And I will bring an everlasting reproach upon you, and a perpetual shame, which shall not be forgotten. Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? There's no truth. There's no truth in what I'm saying. It just don't make no sense. It's big old thick book written by false prophets and men prophesying a vision claiming they had it from he above. And yet there's a little book sealed up for the end of days. Yeah, now we're going to look at that a little bit. So maybe I should actually open this up, because instead of going to where I have it pulled up, we'll go to Revelations 10, which is identifying the birthright holder, the one daughter, her firstborn, God upon the earth. So the little book of truth found sealed up in the big fat book, the Bible, Biblios. It should be a little book, but it's not a little book. It is a big old Biblio. Verse 1. So we'll read the description of the birthright holder, which is the daughter Israel. So I saw a mighty angel come down from heaven. Now you can argue and say, well, it says angel. It doesn't say Lord. Well, let us just recall in some of our studies, many of our studies, we realized that the same three lords sitting on three separate thrones in Psalm 110 are identified as angels, three angels standing before Abraham, and I believe it's Genesis 18, and it's the same three numbers. And they're called angels there, whereas in Psalm 110, they're called lords. Yeah. So this angel here is actually the Lord 136. And it's a description of the birthright holder holding her 7 daughters, identifying the covenant of the Lord, her covenant. And saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, that's her witnesses. And a rainbow, identifies covenant God, was upon her head, and her face was as it were the sun, that's Israel promised to be the light. Yeah, the light of the world. And her feet were pillars of fire. There we go, with the pillars of fire. What do I got wrote on this? So, verse 2, she had in her hand a little book open, and she set her foot upon her right foot upon the sea, and her left foot upon the earth. So that is your restrainer. She's no longer restrained. We find her actually in Isaiah 42. This all ties into the same idea when you are able to piece it all together. And she had in her hand a little book open. Where's the little book? I'm reading right now. The little book. This is a supposed little book. Not so little, is it? That's a pretty big biblios in my book. And she had in her hand a little book, and she set her right foot upon the sea and her left foot on the earth. And she cried with a loud voice as when a what? A lion? Oh no, these are the lionesses roaring, and you're gonna hear them. These are your lionesses in Micah chapter 5, verse 8. Where is it? I wrote it down. Yeah. And they will be as lioness, and it says that they hold the dew. Dew is the doctrine of the dawn, of the new day dawning. And it is as the dew of herbs. So it means it's healing. It'll heal you. Especially the daughters. Yeah. Who's been forced to drink this wine of astonishment. And the earth shall cast out the dead. Of course, that's not what it says. But if you go to Micah, and I thought I had wrote it down, but I guess I don't got it wrote down. 5:8. No, I do. And the remnant of Israel shall be amongst the Gentiles. So that actually leads us, our thinking, to the chapter we find, Isaiah 49, the promise of her birthright, Ephraim, the firstborn of her womb, her promise of her birthright being enlarged. Yeah, she'll claim the Gentiles as her own. So that's why Israel is amongst the Gentiles. It's these daughters. Because the sons in the wanderings decided they didn't want these daughters in covenant. And mother says, fine, you don't want my daughters in covenant? You don't want my scepter to rule through? I'll cast her out amongst the Gentiles. Yeah. And that was the promise of her birthright being enlarged and being fulfilled, because you are declared as an Israelite once you receive her doctrine of truth, and also if you are born of her womb. Yeah, that's right, woman. Which led us all back to the contamination of the woman's seed out in the desert when Balaam and Balak were trying to send those harlots in to seduce the men, which they did do. Yeah. And so they're amongst the Gentiles in the midst of many people as a They got lion, it's lioness. Oh, gather thyself in troops, Ariel. Yeah. Oh, daughter of troops, they have laid a siege against you. Yeah, they did. But now they're going to gather in troops, and they're going to roar like the lionesses they are. And in the midst of many people, as a lioness among the beasts of the forest, as a young lioness among the flock of sheep, who, if she goes through, both treadeth down and teareth in pieces. What did Christ tell you? He says, you can get away with blaspheming the Son of Man, but you're not going to blaspheme her when she shows up, because it leads us back to the burden. You'll be no burden to me. You'll be no burden to me. I won't deliver you. So this is your way out, right? Why? Isaiah 26, awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust, and the earth shall cast out the dead, or give birth to the dead. That's your mother doing it. So he says, when she shows up, she's what delivers you and saves you through the law of heaven, through the truth. Oh, you can blaspheme me and get away with it, he says. You won't blaspheme her. She's the one that's going to give life to you. Yeah. You've gotten away with it a long time, your religious lies and laws. What was the plague of leprosy and the Bible brought upon the people for? Unbelief. That's why. They did not want to believe the truth at her mouth. The daughters. That's right. So, she had in her hand, okay. So verse 3, the lioness, Ariel, is roaring with the dew, with the doctrine of the dawn, right? And cried with a loud voice as when a lioness roared, and when she had roared, 7 thunders uttered their voices. That's her 7 daughters. It says the woman who had borne many sons, what languishes. She will never be delivered by sons, never. But the one who has borne 7, and that means daughters, that's referencing this covenant. Yeah. And her covenant abode in strength, made strong by Almighty God. That's her mother. And so that's why you have these 7 thunders uttering the truth. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. So at this time they were not allowed to reveal the truth, which is the mystery that gets revealed when the 7th trumpet sounds, which is akin to this angel, and yet this angel seems to be the Holy One of Israel. So an 8th. And yet a 7th. Because what follows is the sounding of the 7th trumpet, which is this angel. Is what it looks like. Or one of her daughters on earth sounding. Maybe. Verse 5, and the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up her hand to heaven. Yeah. Where am I? Yeah. I lifted up her hand to heaven and swear by not him, because he don't live forever. It's her that lives forever. That's right. When they gnashed upon these daughters to take the spirit of their covenant out of the land, mother did promise them, I'll take you out of remembrance. There'll be no remembrance of you. And yet it is sealed up in this little book of truth for those daughters to find when they finally pick their head up and wake up to what the wine of astonishment was that they had to drink before they became aware of just how wicked Adam really was. And swear by her that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven. This is the one that was standing in Deuteronomy 32 when she says, I swear by myself that I live forever. This was mother. Now we have the daughter swearing by her mother in heaven, this angel who is now standing on earth, who's called your restrainer, your Holy One, seen going forth, delivering her children in Isaiah 42. And so in what you're seeing is this is the daughter, and she's swearing by her mother, right? Who said in Deuteronomy 32, I swear by myself that I live forever. Who is that? Mother Israel. Who created heaven? She created all things. And the things that therein are in the earth, and the things that therein are in the sea, and the things which are therein, that there should be time. No, longer. That's the sounding of the seventh trumpet and the mystery revealed. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when she shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as she has declared to her servants. That's her daughters, Israel. The prophets, the prophetesses. Takes you back to Jeremiah 23. Ask at the mouth of your wife and your sister what the word of the Lord is. And they didn't want to do that. So, and the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, said, Go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. So what's the little book? Well, the little book is this book right here, the Biblios. Because he was not allowed, right, to write those things down. Right? He wasn't. She was. She's the one that's allowed to receive that little book. Because it's appointed unto her, because it's her covenant coming back into existence. I hear a familiar spirit as of one who speaketh out of the dust of the earth. Isaiah 29. Okay, so we're going to read through here to make sure I ain't missed nothing. So Revelation 4, seal up what the seven thunders uttered. Okay, making sure I ain't missing nothing. Verse 5, she lifts her hand to heaven and swears by her mother Israel, who is forever. So it was verse 40. That's Deuteronomy 32, verse 40, where you see Mother Israel swearing by herself. Yeah, she's the eternal one. Yeah, and here it is her daughter who is swearing by her mother, who is the eternal one. Yeah, that's what you're seeing. I know, you all want to believe it's a man. That's okay. Those are your religious lies. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, the mystery will be revealed. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go and take the little book, which is opened in her hand. So that's the Bible. The other one is sealed. The little book is sealed. And I went unto the angel and said unto her, Give me the little book. And she said, Take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. So the false lie theology is like honey on their tongue, but it's like wormwood in their stomach. It's killing them. It's the sin. It's the law that is shaping the iniquity of this world, their religious lie in laws, right? And so he's told to eat it up. Now we know that Christ has honey when he comes to his beloved, but it's honey and it's sweetness in his belly because it's the truth that he's receiving that's giving him eternal life. So yeah, we do have that comparison, but you got to reason. You got to learn to reason things out. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and I ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey, and as soon as I had eaten, my belly was bitter. So all these words with the he pronoun is so sweet on their tongue, and yet it's killing them. Because a man can't give life. You denied the only one that could give you eternal life. Mother, you rode her right out. You prophesied the burden of the Lord. Yeah, and she said, I didn't send you. So, what was he told in the final verse here? And she said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many people and nations and tongues and kings. The wine of astonishment. They're not done drinking it yet when he received that. So, there you go. I think we've proven that we've got false prophets that participated in why this got to be as thick as it is. And that little book comes from our mother. What did she say? We'll just finish on this verse. Jeremiah 23, what does she say? She says, For who had stood in the counsel of the Lord, of your mother? Who went in and found my words? Who bothered to be able to reason the truth out enough to realize that it's I, Mother above, who gives life to you, not your father? And had perceived and heard her words. Who has marked her words and heard it? That's the sealed little book. And when the seventh angel trumpets, the mystery is revealed. Yeah. Anyway, there's our video. Much longer than I intended it to be. I'm sorry, folk. I had thought this would be about 25 minutes. Mistake there. But when I went in to do a study, in-depth study on it, it just kept compiling and getting longer and longer. So I was a bit draggy in the beginning. I apologize for that. But I thank any who pulls my videos up and watch them. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the subscribers. I appreciate the sharing. I appreciate the attempt at trying to learn a theology that is so foreign to our minds. And yet, God, Mother, she says, I will be a mother and I will deliver you. Because I'm a mother. I love my children. I know my children. I know the lessons I need to teach them, especially my daughters, because they're of me. Yeah. And so there's the video. I thank you for watching. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth, and I hope y'all have a really nice evening. So thanks.